Hey everyone, this is Pico Entertainment and we are back again. I'm going to continue now with our classic anime series, and this week we're going to concentrate on the Guyver. This is a classic cult manga that was created in 1985 by Yoshiki Takaya, and it's had various adaptations from anime to manga to series to movies, but we're going to concentrate particularly on the 1989 animated 12-part series, and this ranged from 1989 to 1992, and it concentrates firmly on the first 4 to 5 volumes on the manga, and this is a 12-part serialized series. And the setup here is that we're in the present day world, and we're concerned with this secretive organization called Chronos, and they specialize in creating bioengineered soldiers called Zoanoids. And we begin the story where we have a test victim of this Zoanoid organization, and he's managed to somehow escape Chronos, and with him he has obtained 3 secret units called the Guyver units, and these were items that the Chronos had somehow obtained, and they were testing to try and see if they could recreate or obtain a secret power that is hidden within the Guyver units. And the test victim, under the stress and the pressures of his experimentation, self-destructs himself from trying to escape from Chronos, and the units get dispersed, and one of the units comes into the possession of a young student called Sho Fukamachi, who eventually bonds with the unit and activates it to create the Guyver 1 Bio Booster armor. And with this Bio Booster armor comes various superhuman strength and powers and speeds, and he's able to exhibit and project energy waves and projectiles. And over the course of the 12-part story, we see Sho come to grips with the Bio Booster armor. We see the kind of psychological and mental effects that the armor has on him. We see the pressures and the struggles that he goes through as he's taking on Chronos, who realise that he's come into integration with the armor, and they try to obtain that from him. We see how the armor and the struggles of Chronos has an effect on Sho's friends and Sho's families. And over the course of the 12 series, without going into too much of spoiler details, we have various other mysterious figures that come through and have their own agendas against Chronos, and they too have various superhuman powers and abilities. And the narrative really is how the heroes are in this ongoing, seemingly never-ending battle against Chronos in trying to escape their wrath, if you like, and get to grips more of the Guyver units. And over the course of the story, we see more antagonists and villains and various other beings throughout as we continue the never-ending fight against Chronos. So that's the main setup of the story here. And I think overall, I think the Guyver, while it's perceived as an aged animation, I still think it's a very strong, compelling series overall. What I like a lot about it is that it does have this serialized feel. You watch one episode, you get to the end, and you kind of immediately want to follow on to the next episode. And it does this very well. It actually builds its story very soundly. You know, we get to know Sho before the Guyver. He's a very kind of innocent, naive, likable character, and we get to see the mental struggles with the Guyver. He doesn't just integrate with the armor and master its skills straight away. No, there's a natural progression that, and we see the effects internally that the armor has on him. And over the course, we see him have various visions and nightmares as he tries to really get to grips of having this power and having this ability, and repercussions and the ramifications of having this Bio Booster suit with him. We have various storylines where we see him incur several battles against the Zoanoids, and he at first is all powerful, but then he becomes up against superior forces, superior villains. He has various injuries and has to recover from various battles. So that's very good as well. So it's not like he's just this invincible hero. You know, there's times when he has to struggle for adversity, and there's a flawed vulnerability within this character. So I think that makes him more watchable. I like on it. And I think as well, one thing that was very distinctive about the Guyver, and especially when it came out during that wave of anime as it broke through into the mainstream market, is the design of the bio booster itself. It's this very complex alien cyborg kind of looking design, very stylish, very aesthetically pleasing looking on the eye. You look at the mask itself and it's got this kind of horn at the front, and it's got this orbs, these kind of silver orbs on the forehead, and we have these pink eyes and this kind of hexagonal design with a mouthpiece, and we see the thrusting smoke come from it as he activates the bio booster. It's very, very really typical kind of anime flashy design look on it. It looks very good as well. The animation, even though it's ranging from the mid to late 80s, still looks very good on here. I think it flows very well. I love the hand depth, detailed animation look of the Guyver design, and especially of the mutants and the Zoanoids and the Bioroids. That Sho comes across it's very good. You know, when we see the transformation effects and we see people morphing into different organisms alike on here. So I love the kind of really vivid design that we see on here. It's very pleasing, it's very good to look at as well on here. And especially another good aspect is the Chronos organization itself. It does a very good job of creating this kind of unbeatable, never-ending antagonist. It's not as if Chronos is one villain or one person. This is very secretive organization that you have various bosses, if you like, of different hierarchy within the organization. So our heroes will come against one stage of Chronos, they defeat that part, but later on learn that there's a even higher up threat within the Chronos organization. And I think that does well, especially when you're dealing with a serialized arc. It's very good to have that ongoing antagonist throughout that you feel can take out the heroes at any time. And there's a good constant sense of peril, because our heroes are constantly on the run, they're constantly trying to escape the never-ending grip of Chronos, and I think that just makes it a more compelling storyline. We do get more story arcs later on about the origins of the Guyver, where they come from, you know, are they aliens, have they been around for decades or centuries or even a bygone era before that. So that just, if you look, deepens the depth and the storytelling and the concept of the Guyver. And again, all of this does is keep you engrossed within the story material. We come across various figures, as I mentioned before, without going into too much spoiler details. And again, it does a great job here of developing these characters. We understand their motivations and their origins and why they want to get involved in Chronos and why they're interested in the Guyver and other alien organisms alike on it. The series does a good job of really establishing these characters on here. So all of this proves to be a very good, compelling watch on here. So the only really negative points I can look at is that sometimes the narrative can get a bit repetitive. Everything from the musical score to the fact of the plot of certain episodes where we basically see the Guyver beat the Zoanoids or the mutants or the monsters again and again and again. Some of the action beats can feel just a bit generic sometimes. Sometimes the action sequences aren't as well staged as they were in a couple of earlier episodes, and it just has a kind of repetitive feel, and sometimes people may find this a bit boring or less compelling alike because of the narrative of the fight sequences alike on it. Some of the animation can look a bit aged when you compare it to more recent anime or better produced anime within that period set on here, but I just feel that sometimes it doesn't expand out of its narrative box, if you like. It would have been nice to have maybe a few villains outside of Chronos and see Sho develop and come across villains that didn't have anything to do with Chronos. I think that would have expanded the narrative even more on here. But I still think overall the Guyver is a very solid, it's a very compelling series to watch overall. If I were to give it a score rating, I would give it a 6.9 out of 10. You know, this was very, not saying groundbreaking, but distinguishable at the time when I said before anime was really breaking out. This was really one at the forefront of that cyberpunk era, that futuristic alien type of narrative on here, where we see a lot of stylish shots and stylish animation frames throughout at its time. You know, I mean, there is a few outbreaks of violence and foul language. I wouldn't say it's hyper violized or hyper stylized, but what you get typically with the manga on here. So overall, a very compelling series to watch overall. I do know that later on there was another series that was created in 2005 to 2006 of about 26 episodes of the Guyver, and again I think that went deeper more into the manga. It managed to cover a lot more of the volumes of the manga, and while the animation is more flashy, you can really see is many cases, while it's smooth and the visuals are more slick, the animation is more simplified, the characters are more simplified, and the detail and the depth of the animation isn't as well drawn on here. There were also some various movies on it. I think they were more kind of straight to DVD. We had the Guyver first in 1991, and we had the sequel, the Guyver the Dark Hero, later in 1994, but they haven't really revered or transcended as well throughout the years. I think when people look at the Guyver, they generally look at the manga and indeed this 12-part animated series here. So those are my thoughts on the Guyver. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Did you enjoy it? Did you think that the latest series from 2005 was superior to this version, or did you indeed prefer this version here for its more kind of dynamic, distinctive design and stylish aesthetic, particularly with the Guyver armor and the more in-depth detailed animation on here? Or did you think that the Guyver is due for a reboot? As I've mentioned previously in reviews, we've seen the likes of Devilman and the likes of Castlevania be successfully integrated into Netflix. So would you like to see the Guyver make a kind of reboot or reinfiguration on Netflix and have a much more up-to-date imagination with more in-depth detailed drawn animation on it? But let me know what you think in the comments below. I will continue with these reviews going forward in the future. I've got a lot more titles and classic animes to go through, and I'll upload those reviews very shortly. So those are my thoughts on the Guyver for now. Please like and subscribe and help me grow this channel as I try to provide more content for you. Stay safe for now, keep at safe distances, take care of yourselves, and I will see you very, very soon.